This presentation is on gifted and non-gifted brains by Elizabeth O'Brien for Grand Canyon University. We will begin by looking at gifted and non-gifted brains. Research done by Nancy Andreasen and presented in Secrets of the Creative Brain shows the significant difference in the levels of activity and locations of activity in a creative brain versus a control subject for both picture and word association tasks. This lines up with research done by Gake in 2008, which indicates that there is additional activity in multiple areas of the brain and more advanced development of the central cortex and cerebral cortices. In addition, looking at gifted, typical, and disabled brains, or 2E brains, Jeffrey Gilligar did research in processes and what the brain was looking like for all of these different brain types, and what they found was that when it comes to processing reading and spatial tasks, gifted and reading disabled brains look more similar than was necessarily expected. So a couple of things that you can kind of see in these images is that a control subject did not look vastly different from the gifted subject, but the reading disabled brain was less active. With the spatial skills tasks, there were higher levels of activity in the control group than any of the others, but with the gifted group showing increased activity as opposed to the reading disabled, and the gifted reading disabled group showing very similar levels of activity. So current research has got several perspectives, but generally speaking, research does agree that there are more advanced developments in the gifted brain, including the increased activity levels. For the area of achievement, I looked at Albert Einstein's brain and found just some really neat information on how his brain was functioning. You see in this image here, his frontal lobes are just much larger than what is typically seen and more developed, but also that in this image of a control brain as compared to Einstein's brain, that the auditory areas of the brain were much smaller than the visual spatial, which is very telling of how Albert Einstein thought about things and learned. As far as ability, again coming from the creative video, the idea of a polymath being somebody who has abilities in many groups and in many areas, and who can achieve across the board. And George Lucas was one of the examples they chose, and just the fact that when you have somebody who's so able in so many areas, that they tend to be more inclined to more significant gifts in the area of creativity. This final slide is looking at the idea of nature versus nurture. And truly what it comes down to is that nothing is 100% nature or nurture, that everything is kind of a messy combination of these two factors. What we have established through our research, through our understandings, though, is that there are physical differences in the brain. So the gifted brain does look and work and function differently than a typical brain. However, when looking at a student and not looking at a crosscut of a brain, nurture plays an awfully big role. We know that children who are exposed to reading every day for at least 10 to 20 minutes a day, depending on their age, grow as readers regardless of their physical brain significantly faster than those who do not. So there's no sense in discrediting the aspect that the role that nurture plays for our students. And we're gifted and creative.